So I hope you're all having a great day, because today, I don't know, there's really nothing much interesting to talk about unless you want me to talk about David Jaffe and God of War, so I decided since we haven't done a Harman Smith video in some time, we would talk about him. And honestly, it's quite amusing, this video, because he believes this is going to be the end of From Software, purely because Sony wants to buy Kadokawa, and he believes they're doing it for From Software, at least from when I watched the video on the stream. I only got through half of it, as I had to go finish stuff, and that's when I ended the stream. But I don't think Harman Smith realizes why they want to buy Kadokawa. It's not for From Software. It's because they want to own the distribution sites for anime and manga, which I believe, in a sense, since they own a majority of these distribution sites, that would fall under a monopoly. Do I really care? I don't really consume anime and manga, so it doesn't really affect me in the slightest. But for those who do, I guess it affects you. Do they own any IPs that you may like? Probably not. But they will have From Software under their belt. Now, will they continue to publish and maybe make a Bloodborne 2? Who knows? From Software said themselves that they would like to be independent. But mainly that's the word of Miyazaki, and if he wants to do that, maybe he can wiggle out of this idea that maybe he can get a deal going that he could lead to him getting his From Software having their independent publishing and game development. If that's reality, maybe he can make it, but I don't think Sony would want that, as Elden Ring sold a couple million copies. Roughly 20 to 30 million copies, which is honestly genuinely impressive for one game, but just kinda treat this acquisition very similar to Activision Blizzard. They're not really trying to get them to own Call of Duty, they want the mobile market that they have under their umbrella. And that's the best way you should look at the Kadokawa thing if that's ever gonna, well, it is going to happen. I think it's now officially confirmed. But anyway, let's stop rambling and let's get started with the video.
The first flame is dying out. The dark soul has been shattered, spread out all across the land. And no, chosen undead will be able to reclaim it and rekindle the bonfire so he can do it all over again. With a different weapon set this time. It's the beginning of the end. It isn't gonna work. It's all falling apart. The cracks are starting to show. People are beginning to see how Fromsoft, the most overhyped developer of the 2010s, is going to meet its demise.
Personally, I don't think Sony is going to do much with them. They probably don't want to change the winning formula that From Software has. Of course, they could attempt to make games exclusive, but From Software didn't sell 25 million copies by excluding a platform. They sold that because they included everyone. And it would genuinely be pretty stupid of Sony to exclude people, as even I know a lot of people that were playing Elden Ring on Xbox, and if they go to exclude it from PC or include PSN, people will go out of their way to make sure that they can avoid that PSN login like they did with God of War and some of the other games Sony has done it with. And yes, I do believe a lot of the concerns that people have with From Software going under Sony's umbrella permanently or for quite some time could lead to a lot of issues, mainly with politics being included in video games because Sony seems to at least prioritize some regards of that, similar to how Microsoft does. And especially with Sony not having that good of a track record recently with a lot of their games, and especially with their games underperforming, honestly, it's kinda crazy that a LEGO Horizons game underperformed. Like, I'm still disappointed a LEGO game didn't perform correctly. Usually LEGO games are pretty peak, but for some reason this one didn't do well. But I guess not many people really wanted it anyway. But I still believe a lot of these concerns are actually pretty valid. So I understand where people are coming from. But then again, why destroy your golden goose when From Software is pretty much going through a golden age?
Like so many other companies before it, it is going to be stopped under the gigantic heel of Sony Incorporated. They are going to get bought out and they're going to be made their bitch. Everything is going to be PlayStation exclusive. Everything's going to be censored. PlayStation is going to make them casualize everything. Game journals are going to get their game journal mode that plays itself. Like the lore is going to like be sold in like these accessory, through DLC, right?
I won't lie, I kinda think Harman is actually kind of spot on. Second of all, that final part of the clip right there, yucky. Also, that was pretty hot, Harman. Oh, that's right, I meant to gaslight you that we're gonna be in a gay relationship eventually. Come on, Harman, stop ignoring me in your streams. You will respond to me and tell me how great I am. But I do kind of feel like Harman is spot on with a lot of this stuff. I feel like Sony will really try to tone down those Souls games, but obviously with the success of Elden Ring, they may reconsider that. Because people played Elden Ring because it was a Souls game, it was fun, it was enjoyable, it was a somewhat challenge, even though it was easier compared to previous Souls games.
Everything's gonna fall apart. Miyazaki's gonna leave the company, and the games are gonna get worse. They're gonna get terrible. You have no idea what Sony's going to do to make these games sell more and more and more. And
I mean, they wouldn't really have to do anything, Harman. With the success of Elden Ring selling 25 to 30 million copies within the 2 years, people played it for a certain reason. It was a challenging game for the most part for people that have never played these Souls games before. It was a good experience, a feature-complete experience. And for the most part, performed pretty well. Unless you were on PC, and since I wasn't on PC at the time when Elden Ring came out, I think I came out like a month later, then I was on PC, and yeah, that was pretty much it. But for the most part, it was a good game. It was an experience that people will remember years down the line, like how we remember Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. Some don't like to mention 2, because, you know, 2 is apparently a bad game. I mean, I won't disagree that much. Yeah, it wasn't the greatest game, but I still appreciate it for what it was.
this is like the reality of the situation, okay? This is what's gonna happen every time you prop up any major third-party company, whether it's like FromSoft or CD Projekt Red or like BioWare or like whoever else, right? No matter who it is, no matter who you try to set up as like the savior of gaming, whoever you try and worship to try and like destroy Nintendo, no matter what you do or like who you give money to, it's always going to result in the same thing. It's going to result in someone like Sony getting involved and just shitting all over everything.
The only company that will really go out there and fuck themselves over would be Nintendo, because no one else is really trying to compete with them. And if you look at games like Pokemon Violet and Scarlet, that's a great example of how Nintendo would just shoot themselves in the foot. I don't think Sony or Microsoft will be going out of their way to harass Nintendo. They're not in the handheld market yet, but they have showed interest in it, so maybe, just maybe, they will be. But then again, everyone seems to take an interest in handheld, so I don't necessarily blame them.
Right? It's gonna result in bankruptcies. It's gonna result in layoffs. It's gonna result in the games getting worse until they are finally unceremoniously canceled and the company dismantled, right? You know, like, again, it wasn't that long ago that Sony purchased Bungie, and what exactly did you get out of that? You haven't gotten a single new release out of Bungie, right? They can't.
I won't lie, looking back at the Bungie acquisition, it really does feel like Sony, in a sense, really overpaid for what Bungie was offering, and Bungie has literally done nothing to make that money or investment actually worthwhile. Which is, it is pretty disappointing. This company used to be at the top of their game not too long ago. But for some reason, they would rather just constantly fail people and not really give people a good product to be happy with. Destiny 2 was honestly such an ass game. Destiny 1 will forever be peak. But let's not forget the previous Halo games that they did. All incredibly peak. I don't really know how to feel about their next game, Marathon, as I've heard a lot of conflicting things about it. A lot of people have either showed interest or not really that interested in it. It doesn't really seem to offer anything that is that special besides a somewhat out there art style. Maybe not really that out there, but for the most part, it's really 50-50 if you enjoy it or not. But it's probably something that I won't be touching, as I'm not really interested in extraction games anymore.
Produce new expansions for Destiny 2, right? They are a shell of their former selves that completely wasted everyone's time by leaving Microsoft, going independent, partnering with Activision, trying to run their business, and then crawling back to Sony because, like, they are, and always have been, completely irrelevant. If Bungie, one of the most worshipped developers of the 2000s, couldn't make it, how exactly is FromSoft any different?
Well, they're quite different, Harman. Just look at how the companies treat their individual consumers and their consumers in general. From Software at least treats their community and gives them what they want. Bungie, on the other hand, wants to nickel and dime you out of everything you have, while destroying whatever reputation they may have had, by constantly making you pay for either DLC, seasons, or just content that, you know, you really shouldn't be paying for. And then if you don't pay for it, you fall behind, and you can't really get anywhere, and I don't believe in the free-to-play experience for Destiny 2, and that also goes for Destiny 1. But Destiny 1 was not as egregious, and was actually more reasonable on the player.
Right? Like, how exactly is Fromsoft going to survive this acquisition? How exactly are they going to handle Sony controlling them? And the answer is that it's not. Like, the grim reality, something that is straight out of Dark Souls lore, is that Sony destroys every video game company it touches.
Well, if that's the case, they would have destroyed Helldivers too. They would have gone at it, well, I mean, they did attempt by adding the PSN requirement and the community fought back, so maybe you have a bit of a point there, but for the most part, they won't destroy stuff that's gonna give them a lot of money. But now, there could be numerous other examples of them doing that, I just can't think of them off the top of my head, but mainly the PSN requirement is a good example of them going out of their way and destroying things, and trying to mess over things just to get their PSN numbers up, because for some reason that means more to them than actually making money from people. Ah, the neighbor's kids making noises. We should release the pitbull named Princess to fix that issue real quick.
Sony is the reason why gaming is so terrible today. Why third parties have degraded, why they all pursue graphics over fun gameplay, how they all abandon like unique creative ideas and have started like chasing the almighty dollar, how they don't understand their audience and don't want to understand their audience, how they disrespect them and make stuff up and like pander to homosexuals and like everything else they've done. It's all Sony doing it, right?
Bro, that last part was kind of crazy, pandering to homosexuals. Hell yeah, Harman. But this isn't really just a Sony issue. I just looked at the Indiana Jones spec sheet that they just released on Twitter, and to get 60 FPS 4K with ray tracing, you need a 4090. I swear, modern gaming genuinely sucks. Either developers don't have the time to actually optimize these games, which it usually isn't them, it's actually a separate QA team that has to report bugs to the developers and then go back and look at all these issues to fix that stuff, but pretty much, it's either that they are lazy, or they don't have the time. And I'm genuinely getting sick and tired of stuff like a 4090 being required for 4K 60 FPS when that shit should be getting like 180, 200 FPS on average. It's genuinely depressing to see this, that all these companies are wasting their time with graphical fidelity when graphics plateaued, like how many years ago? 10 years ago? And then there's no such thing as them taking risk anymore, which is genuinely true. Most of their games are very safe now. And alongside with a myriad of other issues that come along with these big AAA games, it's genuinely annoying. It bugs me, it annoys me. And this is why I won't be buying stuff like Avowed, Indiana Jones, and many other games, because they're just wasting your time with shitty optimization.
Sony's behind everything wrong in video games, in some way, shape, or form. So, the idea that Fromsoft, like the industry darling right now, is the idea that they're going to get acquired by the most evil, toxic console manufacturer in gaming. That's an amusing idea to me. After giving an ill-gotten Game of the Year award to Elden Ring, and after bending the rules so that DLC could get nominated another year, like Fromsoft meets its end by being acquired by Sony.
I honestly hope that Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree wins Game of the Year or DLC of the Year. I don't know what they're doing with it because I don't really care about these game award shows. They literally mean nothing. They're just a giant circle jerk for journalists and people that don't actually play games or actually enjoy proper games. But I think it would be really funny, as a lot of PlayStation guys were very upset with Elden Ring winning Game of the Year over, what was the other game? I forgot what the other one was already. That's how little I care, but it would be pretty cool for more salt.
And it says a lot about Sony's reputation in this day and age where everybody's coping and seething about this. Everyone's trying to make excuses, saying that like it's not going to happen, or that the Japanese government are going to block it, or that nothing's going to change. The games will still be multiply. It isn't gonna matter. Okay.
I'm very 50-50 on that. Like, they could change stuff, Harman, but I don't really think they would, because why change a winning formula? A formula that has worked to sell 25, 20, 30 million copies. I'm just giving a rough estimate of what the numbers are, but pretty much you don't sell those many copies by excluding people like I said earlier in this video. So why change that winning formula, and why limit people? Because the moment that they add PSN requirements for Souls games is the moment that these games are going to lose a lot of PC players. A genuine amount of PC players that won't be able to access that stuff is genuinely crazy. And Sony would be really stupid to do that, and I'm sure, hopefully, if From Software can fight against that, I hope they do. But we need to remember, this acquisition isn't for From Software. It's for anime and manga and the distribution sites. You know what? I don't really want to cover any more in this video. I think you get the point of what I'm trying to get at. Harman believes that this is for From Software, but in reality it's for anime and manga. So I guess I'll see you all in the next video. Have a great day. If you want to become a member to get Discord access, it's permanent, you don't get kicked. You can stay with us forever, be my best friend, be my favorite gooner in my Discord, or whatever else you want to do. But regardless, if you want to show up, we also stream on Mondays, Sundays for Americans, and yeah, that's it. I'll see you all in the next video. Have a great day.